Strategy Show. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, February 25th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by No House Advantage. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. 9-game slate to close out the work week. Tons to talk about for the slate. Adam, how did your Thursday work out?
It went really, really poorly.
Okay.
Usually in NBA, I'm not too far off the field on most things just because it's NBA and everybody's looking at the same stuff. But I was way higher on the Cavs front court pretty much across the board yesterday than the field. So it was a situation where going in, I was like, this is either going to be a really good slate or a really bad one, depending how, in particular, Kevin Love and Evan Mobley do. And they were both. Kevin Love was beyond bad. Evan Mobley was pretty bad also. It just wasn't a very good slate.
Wasn't the one we were looking for. Anything good in hockey or anything else?
No, it was a normal hockey day where I lost 40%, 50%, whatever. Basketball, I think I lost 80% or something. So
okay, that's
hockey
always
went
fun.
better, and I played 4 times as much of basketball too. So
couldn't have gone any better there.
Yeah.
Well, 9 games to talk about. We got a lot to deal with. A couple of the games pretty easy to talk about. Some a little bit more complicated, but I say we just dive in.
Yeah, let's go.
First one up on the list, Toronto Raptors, 2.5-point favorites in Charlotte, 225 total. We've got a Q tag on Fred VanVleet. By all accounts, he is playing. On the Charlotte side, they're slowly getting people back. Doubtful tag on Jalen McDaniels and Nick Richards, but Cody Martin is probable. Still no Gordon Hayward. He's probably going to be another 2 weeks or so, maybe 3 weeks. So let's kick it off on the Toronto side. Easy to talk about in general. Specifics will change it up a little bit. Siakam, VanVleet, Trent, Anunoby, Barnes. They're getting massive minutes at the very least against a Charlotte team that plays really fast and isn't very good defensively. I like the entire starting 5. Do you have individual priorities here?
Not really. I mean, Siakam at 9,300, I think looks great. VanVleet, Trent, those 3 would be my top 3. But between them, I don't really have strong preferences.
Yeah, same.
I do. Oh, it's because he's questionable. Never mind.
VanVleet.
I was going to say if VanVleet's 0.5% owned, then VanVleet, but never mind.
Yeah, no. He's 8K on FanDuel, too. That looks incredible. Anunoby pulling the most ownership on the FanDuel side, 28%. That's because he's 5,400. So,
yeah, it's insane.
Go ahead and jam him in because I think he was 8,500 a month and a half ago. So, yeah, go ahead and get. I mean, any one of those guys working their way into a lineup's fine. Any 2 of those guys really working their way into a lineup, totally fine. They look really similar on DraftKings relative to salary. Yeah. Can you get to Boucher or Birch or Young or anything like that? It's just sort of starting 5 or bust.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, assuming VanVleet is in, I have a hard time getting to those guys because, where are the minutes coming from? If VanVleet were to sit, obviously it changes everything because not only do Siakam and Gary Trent look a lot better, but you got 20 minutes from Thad Young last game. You got Kevin Birch in the starting lineup for 20 minutes. So that would open stuff up. But assuming VanVleet's in, I still don't know, how much Thad Young's even playing. I assume he's playing 12 minutes or something like that. So that's not going to be that appealing. But that's still also cutting into some combination of Boucher, Birch, Achua. So if they're all in, I think it's pretty tough to get beyond the starters.
Anything else to talk about for Toronto? It's kind of just, they're pretty cut and dry.
Yeah. No.
What are you laughing at? Anything you can actually say?
Devin Booker steals record bailed out the 60% awful play. Yeah, Devin Booker getting 12 points off of steals was pretty ridiculous. Devin Booker going for a double-double with assists, as a result of Chris Paul being out, kind of didn't matter. He was getting 50+ fantasy points regardless.
I was a little surprised. That ownership was a little healthy to me, but nothing. He was clearly one of the best plays on the slate. So.
Yeah, I mean, 50+% at that price was high, but calling him a bad play is just absolutely insane.
No.
He's running point guard without Chris Paul.
I'm with you. To Charlotte. I don't know how much Cody Martin's going to matter. Probably just soaking up whatever was going to go to like JT Thor or James Booknight, but no real ownership coming in. We've got LaMelo Ball and PJ Washington about 15% owned on FanDuel. Nobody else getting any ownership. We've got Montrezl Harrell on DraftKings at 5,600, 16% owned. Nobody else in double digits. I like Charlotte more than our current ownership is showing. And I like the guys that are getting the ownership, but I think like the field is a little lighter on Bridges or Rozier or even Ball to a degree, even though at 9,600, that's a healthy price tag. I like Charlotte a little bit more than the public, but they just kind of look good, not great.
Yeah, like I don't love the matchup for them. I do just obviously like some of the players and the playing time that they get. I'm interested to see how things look with Martin coming back. I assume it's gonna be a similar rotation for the main guys. Like last game, you got 7 minutes for Book Night, you got 15 for JT Thor. You can just give 22 minutes to Cody Martin right there.
Yep.
And everybody else is still gonna look pretty much the same. We did not get any Plumlee and Harrell alongside each other, so that went back to normal. I don't really know what to do with that here. Harrell got the bulk of the minutes last game. I assume they're splitting around 48 minutes, maybe a little bit more. It makes either of them okay in tournaments, but also risky because we don't really know which one's going to get those minutes. PJ Washington started last game, played a lot. He looks decent. He looks decent to me at 5,300, I think. You could see, Martin potentially cut into that a little bit, depending on how that rotation goes. But the Ball, Rozier, Bridges pieces, I think you can feel pretty confident in them playing a lot of minutes.
Well, let's talk through that road. So I'm guessing you then don't agree with the Montrezl Harrell ownership. Or you think that he's the starter, plays 30 minutes?
I don't think he's the starter.
Okay.
I think he could be the closer, but like I think on a 9-game slate at center at 5,600, you probably it's one of those where like the ownership makes sense to me in that if Harrell plays 30 minutes or something, he's a good play, and there's a pretty decent chance he plays 30 minutes. But I think you're also going to be able to find pivots on a 9-game
Will you
slate.
project any minutes alongside each other?
Probably not with Martin back.
Okay. Tricky team then. That frees up a lot of playing time. As weird as it sounds, like that probably if we're not going to project them to play alongside of each other a lot, like we're going to create like an extra 4 to 8 minutes of what would have been probably our previous assumption going into that last game before the break. I assume that just goes to PJ Washington, but Bridges, Rozier, Ball. I think we can both agree that's easy. The rest of the team, I don't have any confidence whether it's Harrell that plays 20 minutes or 30, whether it's PJ Washington that plays 20 minutes or 30. Kelly Oubre could just as easily play 32 or 24. There's a little bit of ambiguity there for Charlotte. I would just want to get away from the Harrell ownership if it's going to already be there.
Right. I'll probably project it like 28 Harrell, 20 Plumlee, something like that, which will make Harrell look good. It's just that I think on a 9-game slate at center, like there's probably going to be some other pivots as well. So not a bad play, but probably a little bit more ownership than I like.
Would you want to take a shot on unowned Mason Plumlee? Or is that just still too big of a slate to
probably too big of a slate? Like you could, but that's kind of thing I would be more inclined to do on like a 5-gamer or something.
Okay. Anything else we should touch on for Charlotte?
Nope.
Alrighty. Let's go to game number 2. Oklahoma City on the back-to-back 7-point dogs in Indiana, 216.5 total. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 11% owned on FanDuel. No one else is above 7. That is also Shai on DraftKings. Next highest number is 1% to anybody else. Are we playing anyone here from Oklahoma City? Obviously, we have no idea who's playing on a back-to-back, what's going on since they played yesterday.
Yeah, so we did get word that Gilgeous-Alexander's playing today.
Right.
We also got word that going forward, Josh Giddey is going to be on the ball more. SGA is going to be off the ball. I mean, that we'd already seen SGA's fantasy production cut into by Giddey because of him having the ball in his hands more, than we saw last year. So really that news just, I mean, you don't want to go too crazy with it because coaches lie, things change. Josh Giddey supposedly is playing 30 minutes still. So you don't want to go too crazy with it, but it just makes me like SGA even less. He was already, I think, kind of a tough sell at 9K on a 9-game slate, but if they actually go forward with that plan, I think it makes SGA just even more scoring dependent. But other than that, not knowing who's going to be in, it's pretty tough to talk about here. One thing to keep an eye on for sure, though, is Isaiah Roby, because Derek Favors started yesterday, which I don't know why. They had seemingly been kind of giving the keys to Roby, letting him run with it, and then they decide Derek Favors is going to start again. But now you have the back-to-back. If Favors is out, especially if like Favors is out and Williams is out, then I would be expecting Roby to play quite a bit.
Isaiah Roby, 4,300 on DraftKings. Fantastic price. A lovely 6K on FanDuel, which I don't even know how that happens. But yeah, 6K on FanDuel for today. We can't really talk about Oklahoma City all that much just because we don't know what's going on. Based on the ownership, though, if everybody's available again, this team looks terrible.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Like if you want to go to Aaron Wiggins and cross your fingers that he gets those minutes again as the pay down option, like maybe, but I don't know. To me, it's just Shea and that's it. And even that's not exactly all that exciting to get to.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends. Like, by the time we do the deeper dive in Live Before Lock, OKC could look good here. If you get, Dort, Williams, Jerome, Favors all out, then OKC is going to be pretty appealing on a lot of their front court options. But if we assume most or all of those guys are in, then there's just not really much.
All righty. Well, then let's go over to the Indiana side, where I think we have just as many question marks as we do for OKC, and we know what's happening for Indiana. Probable tag on Malcolm Brogdon, so welcome back. Good luck figuring out how many minutes that dude's playing today. Chris Duarte is questionable. Still no Turner. Isaiah Jackson's back. Goga Batadze's back. So let's start here. Who's the starting center for the Indiana Pacers today? Goga?
That would be my guess. It's purely a guess. I really have no idea.
Buddy Hield's projected for 16% ownership on DraftKings at 6,300. The next highest mark is Hield on FanDuel at 5.5. There's no ownership coming in to the Indiana Pacers today. Will you be getting to the Indiana Pacers?
I don't think I get to much. Like, Brogdon being back just throws such a wrench into this because I have no idea how many minutes he plays. I assume he's not just coming back and playing his normal starters minutes, but I don't know. They've already rushed him back twice. Maybe he's like actually finally good to go now. So I don't really know, but obviously he's going to cut into Halliburton's production at least somewhat when they're on the floor together. And you're basically getting like a maximum price Halliburton right now. Same goes for Hield at 6,300. So if you want to take shots on Halliburton and Hield, then I think that's okay. But I don't really have any confidence with everybody coming back.
No, Halliburton's 9,500 on FanDuel. To me, that's basically unplayable with Brogdon back. How the fuck does Tyrese Halliburton pay off a $9,500 price tag with Brogdon in? I have no idea. You good?
Yeah, I got something in my eye.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, you got two of them, so that should be fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just close that up. Be a pirate. Get a patch. Yeah, I don't know what we do here. This is complicated. Isaiah Jackson's 5,600 on both sites. If he starts, maybe that's appealing. Goga is fine. $4,100 Goga on FanDuel, I think, is a pretty decent center option, but we're not going to be short on center options on a 9-gamer. I don't think there's a single priority in Indiana, and there's a decent chance there's not a single priority in this entire game.
Yeah, I agree with that. The starting lineup will tell us a lot. Actually, I don't even know how much it can tell us at these prices because Isaiah Jackson's up to 5,600. So if he starts, it's okay, cool. He looks better than if he's not starting. But what does that mean? Are we getting a 30-18 split or a 24-24 split? So it's kind of if Goga starts at 4,600, you can gamble on him. If he doesn't start, I wouldn't touch him. Same kind of goes for Isaiah Jackson at 5,600. He has power forward eligibility too, which is nice. If he starts, cool. Take some shots, but it's risky. It would be a spot where at the very least you could pay attention to the ownership between him and Harrell in lineups where maybe you need a center in that range but need to save some ownership. But there would just still be a lot of risk because they're getting bodies back. We have no idea what this rotation is going to look like because we haven't seen it. And one of those bodies coming back in Brogdon negatively affects every player that we would typically play.
O'Shea Brissett 7,200 on FanDuel. FanDuel just doesn't want you to play anybody from the Pacers. I got nothing else here. Schedule for the rest of the day. Yahoo NBA show coming up basically immediately after this, 11:30 a.m. We got I assume that's NHL strategy, and I typed it in wrong. NHL strategy show at 2. Let me make sure that's true. Yeah, NHL strategy show at 2 o'clock. Prize Picks NBA show at 3:30. And we're back for Locks Before Lock at 4:30. Adam's back for the deeper dive at 5. And then we've got Live Before Lock from 6 to 7:30. Free content for today. NBA ownership projections, very important for what you're doing, especially if you're watching this show. NBA ownership projections, NHL ownership projections, and MMA pro plays leading into this Saturday's UFC card. And if you haven't done it yet, hit that like button on this show. We're going to move to game number 3. Houston Rockets, 4-point underdogs in Orlando, 228.5 total. On the Houston side of this one, everybody except for Usman Garuba is available. On the Orlando side, still no Fultz, no Isaac, no Mo Wagner. RJ Hampton, though, is back. I like Houston quite a bit here. Whether it's Jalen Green, 4,300 on FanDuel, 5K on DraftKings. He's 18% owned on FanDuel. Christian Wood's in double digits on both sites. Eric Gordon is 15% owned on DraftKings. That's the most of anybody for Houston. Jayshawn Tate is 5,200 on FanDuel. He's 17% owned. So I'm happy to get to Green, to Wood, to Porter, to Gordon on DraftKings, to Jayshawn Tate on FanDuel. I think this looks like a pretty decent spot.
Yeah, I kind of wish they were more expensive because I hate slates where I think I'm going to be getting to Houston. But yeah, I mean, across the board, like I don't think that there's any one guy that looks great, but they just look pretty good. 7,900 for Christian Wood is not a bad spot. 4K flat for Eric Gordon is certainly not bad, especially with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. I think those are the top 2 for me. But then you get Porter, Tate, Green. This is also potentially a spot where you see a little bit more of Şengün alongside Wood, which is, in terms of playing time at least, beneficial for both of those guys. So that's worth noting as well when you're talking about Bamba and Carter in the opposing front court.
Is that your expectation?
Not a ton of minutes because I still think the starting lineup is likely to be Porter, Green, Gordon, Tate, Wood, but I think they play more than 48.
Okay.
So I think you can go 34 for Wood, I don't know, 20 for Şengün or something.
Okay, that works. Oh God, just I don't want to play Jalen Green, but that $4,300 price tag on FanDuel, I can't get away from something like that. This is just you just have to play a lot of dudes that are highly inefficient or gross, but pace up spot. I know they're gaining 2.5 possessions over their average in this one. Who is your favorite play from Houston on DraftKings? Because ownership says it's Eric Gordon.
It's either Eric Gordon or Christian Wood.
Okay.
It's kind of two different. It's one of those. It's 2 different questions. In terms of fitting into my lineup price wise, Eric Gordon's going to be easier. In terms of when I look at my lineup and say oh, I like this, Christian Wood.
Sure. I actually think my answer might be Jalen Green, and I hate myself for it, but it's not helpful.
I would have bet a lot that your answer was Kevin Porter.
Oddly enough, no. I have him 6,700 on DK is about right. Only one position for eligibility to kind of limits him. Does look good though. I don't know. I like Houston today. Not fun at all. On the opposite side of this one, Orlando, I certainly like pretty much all of Orlando. This one's a problem. Cole Anthony might be the best play of the slate at 6,100 on FanDuel. He's 34% owned. Cole Anthony's 34% owned. Franz Wagner's 25% owned. Wendell Carter's 25% owned. Mo Bamba's 24% owned. That's all on FanDuel. They're not all that different on DraftKings. It's a little bit lighter. Suggs is pulling 20% ownership. He's actually the second most owned guy from the Magic. Are we just playing everything from Orlando today?
Yeah, it looks that way. Games like this are so scary because both teams are just so bad. But the pricing is pretty favorable here. I mean, on the Houston side, we had a we had some decent pricing on the Orlando side. It's just insane. Cole Anthony at 7K looks great. I think Jalen Suggs at 6K looks very good. Carter at 7,400 looks fantastic. You have Bamba at 4,500, who we know his playing time can be hit or miss, but he's at this point just basically priced for his floor. So I think that if he gets 24 to 26 minutes, he's likely to do very well here. So I really like all of those guys. Wagner at 5,700 is fine. I would say he's my least favorite of the starters, though.
I would agree that he is my least favorite of the starters as well. I'm a little surprised at the ownership he's pulling, considering he's just small forward eligible. Does that Wendell Carter ownership concern you at all? 19 point, call it 20%, 7,400.
A little bit. But it's one of those, I mean, I think it makes sense. Like, if he were lower owned, I'd be saying, like, oh my God, why is Wendell Carter so low owned? This kind of goes back to the conversation I'm having in chat about Devin Booker right now. Yes, if you run a sim and try and get like an optimal percentage here, there's a pretty good chance that Wendell Carter Jr. comes in as being over-owned in the sense that he's not in the optimal lineup 20% of the time. But you don't need the actual literal nuts to win tournaments. No. That's kind of just one metric that you're looking at. And when you like floors still exist, someone doing just being clearly underpriced is still really useful. So, like in the context of Devin Booker, he had a 60 whatever fantasy point game. If he went for 50 yesterday, he's still an extremely useful play. And it's the same kind of thing, here, obviously at a lower ownership number, but like you can, even if Wendell Carter is a little bit over-owned in the sense of, optimal versus ownership percentage, you can still build some very, very good lineups that have contrarian plays in them. And you're just kind of saying, okay, I have a couple contrarian plays here, and now I'll take Wendell Carter Jr., who looks like one of the best plays on the slate.
Yeah. To me, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a lot like him at that price tag, given that ownership, but I still like him. So
I actually think Bamba's ownership's a little bit scarier.
Bamba's ownership is scarier. I think it makes more sense, though.
I think that's fine. Like, and it's the same kind of thing for me. Like, I think Bamba's ownership is fine. He's 4,500 against Houston, but I'm not particularly concerned about Wendell Carter, like, barring foul trouble or injury or something ridiculous, playing 18 minutes or something. Like, there is a non-zero chance that a 24% owned Mo Bamba plays like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. His Mo Bamba's downside is price, or is playing time, rather.
Sure.
And yet he might actually be behind Cole Anthony. I think he's probably my favorite option here. Anthony for 6,100 on FanDuel. I don't know what they're doing there. That's wildly insane price tag here against Houston. Who is your favorite Orlando piece?
Flip a coin on Carter, Anthony, Bamba.
Yeah. With Anthony, at least you're like, okay, this guy's going to just play 30 plus minutes, and I'm going to have a shot the whole time.
Yeah.
This is sneaky, like the most interesting game, and it's a post All-Star game between two of like the 5 worst teams in basketball. That's just what you want on a 9-game slate, to really be sweating the trash bags.
And it's going to be great when both teams decide they want to lose, so they run 12-man rotations.
Yeah. Is there any chance that RJ Hampton is viable today? He's the flat minimum.
Probably not.
Like, he should be.
Right.
Like, they should just buy out Terrence Ross right now.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean by viable too, I guess. Like, if he plays 20 minutes, he probably, 6Xs.
Yeah.
But is that enough in terms of, just taking up a roster spot?
Yeah, I don't know. Craziness. Anything else for Orlando?
How many minutes do you think Hampton plays?
I gave him 16.
I would say 16, 18 seems right to me.
What did I give him? Yeah, like, they have Admiral Schofield played 19 minutes the last time out. Iggy Brazdeikis played 12. Like, there's enough playing time going to guys that definitely don't need playing time that he can fall into just about anything.
Yeah, I mean, Iggy was just pure fourth quarter, but
had been sneaking onto the court for. He's like that next guy in the rotation that is very clearly not going to be in it any longer.
Right. And Okeke played 29 minutes last game, but Harris only played 19. I think it's pretty easy to get to get Hampton rather, like 18 minutes.
Yeah. All right, San Antonio, 2-point favorites in Washington against your Wizards, 224 total. Just a weird game altogether. These guys are not interesting on FanDuel. DeJounte Murray's 10K, 29% owned. No one else above 6. On DraftKings, though, Murray, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, Lonnie Walker, and then Devin Vassell at 18% ownership. But all those other guys are around 10. You're casting a pretty wide net on San Antonio, at least from a public perspective on DK. It's only Murray on FanDuel. What do you see for the Spurs?
10% owned DeJounte Murray is always interesting in tournaments. Like the price tag's getting up there, but again, without Derek White, I think it's pretty well deserved. 223 total in this game, 113 implied for San Antonio looks good. So I still really like Murray. Poeltl, Vassell, I think both look fine to me. Lonnie Walker at 3,900 is fine as well. I don't know. I'm not quite as confident as the ownership seems to be.
Same. I'm way, way, way lighter on these San Antonio guys. I don't love it. Like Murray, Keldon Johnson to me are the two key pieces. 18% Vassell is not something that I want on a 9-gamer. You know, I get the Lonnie Walker love. You know, that'll probably go away if we get any news throughout the day.
But yeah, I mean, the thing that scares me with Walker, and so this actually mattered. It doesn't seem like it would, but if Josh Primo and Langford, but like if Primo is out, I do feel a little bit better about Walker, because my concern on Walker is like he played 28 minutes last game, but the playing time's been all over the place this year. I still don't have a great feel for what they're doing with Josh Richardson. Like he hasn't really been utilized heavily. He played 14 minutes last game. I don't know if that is a Pop is going to turn him into Thaddeus Young and just stop playing him type thing, or if it's like a Pop just wants him to get acclimated with the team and then he's going to play more. But we do know that Walker's minutes have been volatile. So like I think he looks like a good value at 3,900, but it wouldn't be surprising if he played like 20 minutes instead of 26. If Primo's out, I think those minutes are a little bit more secure. I feel better about Devin Vassell's minutes, assuming he remains in the starting lineup. Obviously, he's a little bit more expensive though.
Keep your eye on that news. That's one of the few pieces that we need.
Also, I think, Trey Jones was out last game too. So like that's another reason why potentially you saw a little bit more playing time for Walker, was just a trickle down effect of that.
Who is the best play on San Antonio that isn't DeJounte Murray?
Probably Vassell.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. You get the good eligibility, 5K. I don't know.
I mean, Poeltl could also double by halftime.
Certainly could, especially if, depending on how the rotations work out for the Washington Wizards. Wizards, no Kristaps Porzingis for this one. Thomas Bryant is questionable. Honestly, Jakob Poeltl probably wants Thomas Bryant to play in that one. That way they don't put a better center on the floor for more minutes. Let's go to Washington. Kyle Kuzma, 7,600 on FanDuel. Yeah, 7,600. He's 35% owned. He is 7% owned on DraftKings, where he's 8,900. Highest owned guy on the Wizards. Pricing is just like dead opposite across these sites today. Highest owned guy on the Wizards for today, 16.5% owned Rui Hachimura at 4K. We also get Corey Kispert north of 10%. We get KCP on FanDuel north of 10%. Do you want Washington players today? Because I don't. But, you're a homer, so you never know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the ceiling on Kuzma is nice, but he's also really expensive on DraftKings. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense on FanDuel. He's getting a ton of ownership. On DraftKings, there's still plenty of upside, but you're paying for it. He's in the games now. He's played 5 games without either one of Beal or Dinwiddie this year. He has a 28% usage rate, 16.5% rebounding percentage, 24.5% assist percentage. He's averaging 1.16 DraftKings points per minute, 36 minutes per game. All of that looks really good. But he also only has one positional eligibility at power forward, and he's expensive. So he's fine, but I wouldn't say that I'm expecting to build around him.
I assume you do like him quite a bit for 7,600 on FanDuel.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Small forward and power forward as well.
Yeah, so way easier to get to on FanDuel. We finally got the last game where Ish Smith plays 27 minutes off the bench. Howell Neto only played 20. So you did actually get them going back to playing 48 minutes combined. They had played alongside each other a good amount the game before that, but that stopped happening. I think that either of them are sort of okay dart throws in tournaments, not together, but I also don't think either one ends up looking like a priority by the time we get to lock. Rui at 4K is okay. I mean, he played 27 minutes last game. That's good to see just, physically that he was able to do that. So I don't mind taking some shots on him there, but there's not a whole lot that I'm confident in on DraftKings.
Does he play 27 again?
I would project like 24.
Okay. 20. I don't know. I don't know where the minutes come from. I guess you just play Anthony Gill a little bit less, or because we got 13 minutes out of Gafford, 14 minutes out of Thomas Bryant. You got to assume one of those two numbers is going up, or maybe Gafford goes back to not playing again. There should be minutes there for Rui. I don't know. I guess. Well, did Gafford just get in because of Bryant getting hurt?
No, Gafford. No, I mean he played in the first half too.
Okay.
Like I think
is he back in the rotation, you think?
For like 12 minutes.
Okay. Just checking. If Thomas Bryant doesn't play, how good of a play is Daniel Gafford at 3,400 today?
I think a good one. Like it still scares me because like they can just go to Rui, they can go to Gill. I don't really know what they're doing with Gafford. But I think he's a good play at 3,400. He started a couple of games ago. How many minutes did he play?
21 if it was on February 2nd. Otherwise, he hasn't played more than 7 minutes in the last month. So it has to be 21 if that's the game. There are no other options.
Yeah, 21 minutes against Philly.
So,
I mean, yeah, if he plays 21 minutes at 3,400, he looks good.
Yeah. And that was, with Montrezl Harrell there too. So, if Bryant is out, like Rui was back for that one. If Bryant is out, you have to assume that Gafford can play more than 21 minutes in that scenario then too.
Yeah, you could get like 24.
All righty. Anything else for your Wizards?
No, it's just a lot of. I mean, Kuzma's obviously the piece that you trust, the production, and as you mentioned, a massive price gap between DraftKings and FanDuel. But everybody else is kind of just, if you get to a little bit, I think that's fine. I don't think anybody should be pulling a ton of ownership. Like Rui at 4K, Kispert at 4,500 are both decent values. Smith at 4,200, same thing. But these are guys that basically I think all go away as we get more news later.
All righty.
Or if we get
Miami Heat. What'd you say?
I said, or if we get more news later.
Yeah, that's a good point. Miami Heat are 5-point favorites in New York, 211 total. Just on the surface, this is sort of the worst game from a DFS perspective. Two super slow teams. Miami has everybody available that matters. Butler, Lowry, Adebayo, and Tyler Hero. I'm already going to mess this up. I don't remember the name or the number, but any guesses as to how many minutes Butler, Lowry, Bam, and Tyler Hero have played together this season?
Butler, Lowry, Bam, and Hero?
Yeah.
Not a lot. Like, I don't know, 200?
I know it's not more than what I'm about to say, but I might just be flipping the two numbers. 65.
Oh, wow.
It could also be 56. Like those are the two numbers that are in my head, and I can't remember which one's which. It serves the same purpose though. They just don't. They like their quote unquote four best players have basically not played together this year. And like,
I knew it wasn't a lot.
Those four guys are likely in their closing lineup in a playoff game, and they just like don't play together.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't a lot because whenever I try and do like see the games that whatever combination of them have played together, it's always just like, it's like 4.
A Fetty Nasty, which is definitely not the way that you should read that name, with the big time super chat. Just hopped in. As always, thanks for all your hard work. I don't think some actually realize what you're offering for free. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Thanks for the super chat, man. We appreciate you. It's nice to have you here. Highest owned guy on the DraftKings side of Miami, 4.9% owned Bam Adebayo. Highest owned guy on FanDuel, $8,700 Jimmy Butler at 12%. There's not a single priority here for me for Miami. If I had Butler or Lowry or Bam or Hero in a lineup, I'm fine with it. I'm also probably not even going to notice it. There's just nothing here.
Yeah, pretty much where I'm at as well. And you were right. It is 65 minutes. But yeah, it's kind of just none of them are drastically overpriced. Bam still is very good at 8,400, but there's just going to be more underpriced centers. Same goes for Butler at 8,900. His assist rate takes, a little bit of a hit with Lowry playing. The usage rate takes a little bit of a hit with Bam playing. Lowry's usage rate takes a hit with all of Bam, Butler, and Hero playing. So, and he probably loses a couple of minutes as well. So yeah, it's just kind of, if you end up with a little bit of Bam, a little bit of Butler, that's fine. But there's nothing that I'm prioritizing here. Like, I think that at 8,900, I think I get to Kuzma before I get the Butler, for example.
I'm with you. I find very, very little here to be appealing. I would have thought that $8,400 Bam Adebayo with like a 27% usage rate would be something that would look really, really good. And it's just, there's just so much center talent these days that it's just like another guy. So, and this game is just dog shit from a fantasy perspective. Speaking of dog shit, the New York Knicks going to be without Kemba Walker for the rest of the season. They finally put him down. So let's have the Alec Burks discussion. Assuming he starts, is this 32 minutes of Alec Burks? Is it straight back to 36 minutes of Alec Burks? Even if it's 32, which is where I have him, he is the only guy pulling any ownership for the Knicks. And to me, probably the only guy that should, although we got to keep our eye on RJ Barrett for today.
Yeah, it's tough because, for one, the matchup sucks, but like, if he plays 32 minutes at 4,900, he's okay. Like, he's a 0.88 fantasy point per minute guy this season. He's only 4,900. He just looks okay. It's just it's the kind of play I hate making it at high ownership. He has started 15 games with both of Barrett and Randall active this year. He's averaged 33.6 minutes per game, 0.82 DraftKings points per minute, 17.5% usage, 15% assist percentage. Like, that guy can just he can disappear so easily in this spot, but there's also not a ton of value on this slate, and he is relatively inexpensive.
Yeah. Look, if he's starting at 4,900 with point guard, small forward, like, obviously he's going to get rostered. It just, he has to.
But if Barrett's out, Burks looks a lot better as well.
Absolutely. I don't know about a lot, but definitely you feel way more comfortable.
Yeah. It makes you feel a little bit better about the minutes. It makes you feel better about the usage and production.
Yeah. Is there anything else here you want to get to? Like, if Barrett's in, I like him a little bit. He's probably my second favorite option if he's in.
So I will. So he's actually played, Burks, that is, has actually played 6 games without Barrett and with Randall this year. His usage is about the same. He has averaged like 40 minutes per game in those games. But all that's really changed is his playing time, not his rates. So it's a situation where, like, if Barrett's in, I probably go to like 32, 33 on Burks. If he's out, I'll probably go to like 36. But either way, it's still somebody that scares the hell out of me because there's just so many ways for him to disappear, whether it's Miami, just being a good defense, it's being a slow-paced game. Julius Randle does everything. Like, Grimes has been getting more minutes. So that's another body where, like, he hasn't even been in the rotation all the time this year. So he, potentially can cut into those minutes a little bit. If Barrett's in, I'm interested at 6,700. Again, I hate the matchup, but you do get a very high usage guy that I assume would be playing a lot of minutes. So not a priority, but I would have some interest in Barrett, especially at only 4% ownership.
Anything else for the Knicks?
If Barrett's out, Randall's usage goes up. Again, the matchup sucks, but it would be something to pay attention to as long as the ownership is low.
No House Advantage, the presenting sponsor of this show. If you use the promo code Awesemo, you can get yourself $25 on your first deposit. What you're doing here is picking player props, over-unders, but they don't change throughout the day. So as news breaks, some of these other guys' player props are going to change and become basically close to locks. You got to rank them on a confidence interval from 10 points all the way down to 1. So you definitely want to be paying attention to the news throughout everything. We have No House Advantage projections and optimal lineups already ready for you at awesemo.com. So make sure you're checking out those things. We've got, someone like Dennis Schroeder over under 13.5 points. With everybody back for Houston, Dennis Schroeder might just be the backup point guard. The under on something like that seems to stand out a bit to me. Let's see who else would be on here that could be mildly interesting. Where do you want to land on 20? This one, I think we're just going to take the under, but not necessarily feel good about it. Malcolm Brogdon is on here. 20.5 points, 6.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds. I'd like to take the under, but I also don't know how much he's going to play.
Yeah, I
I
mean, I would
lean
like
that
to take.
he'll be limited.
I'd like to take the under on all of that, but like if he gets to 30 plus minutes, you're
Yeah, then I want
probably
the over probably
yeah, exactly.
because there's nobody left. Is there anybody else on here? Like, RJ Barrett is listed, which means these Knicks props could end up wiggling a little bit as we get a lock, depending on the way that the news comes out. The Lakers are likely already nope. 17 and a half points for Russ seems pretty interesting if with no AD here today. And we're going to get to him. Unfortunately, we're going to be playing a bunch of Russell Westbrook, particularly on FanDuel. We'll cross that bridge. Again, no house advantages of the site. That's where you want to be. Promo code Awesemo gets you the monies. We got 4 more games to go here. This is the fun one to talk about. I don't even know how we do it. The Philadelphia 76ers are 2.5 point favorites in Minnesota, 228 total. So amazing matchup for the Sixers in Minnesota. Wolves on a back-to-back. This is the debut of James Harden for the Sixers. We're basically not projecting any ownership in this game outside of Joel Embiid. If you want to play Embiid, knock yourself out. He obviously has no problem taking it to Towns. But what do we do with James Harden, who is 9,600 on FanDuel today, 10,900 on DraftKings?
I doubt I get to him.
I assume you would get to him on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'll say at least on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's different. Yeah, like I mean, obviously I have no idea how to project this. We've never seen this work. We do know from the very limited time that Harden actually played with Kyrie and Durant in Brooklyn, he took a little bit more of a back seat than I think we typically expected. And with this being his first game in Philly, I mean, obviously this is just completely, like, I don't even know if narrative is the right word, but just guessing. Like, I think it's probably logically more likely that he just tries to sort of be the Robin to Embiid's Batman, at least out of the gate, as opposed to just walking in and dribbling the air out of the ball and have Embiid, punch him at halftime. So I don't feel very confident in Harden.
Yeah, I'm with you there. He's definitely not going to defer all that much to Tobias Harris. So
no, like
he slots into 2 instead of 3 now.
Yeah, what I do feel comfortable with is that basically anybody that is not named Embiid or Harden, I don't like their prospects right now.
So what you're telling me is that you don't like Tyrese Maxey for 6,400 today on DraftKings?
I do not, no.
You
probably do.
I do. And I don't think that I'm projecting him all that well. I got him at 0.8 FanDuel points per minute for this game. They came out talking about how they want to have at least 2 of, I think it was Harden, Maxey, and Embiid on the floor like at all times, which is interesting to me. I think Maxey's minutes hold at 36, which makes me a little bit interested. Like the guy that I probably don't want is Tobias Harris. That dude is going to feel like he does not belong any longer, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think Maxey's minutes probably do hold, but essentially you're expecting every minute he plays to be alongside at least one of Embiid or Harden. He's played 1,109 minutes alongside Embiid this year. He's averaged 0.74 DraftKings points per minute. So let's just say that
maybe I'm not even pessimistic enough.
So let's say that's what he does alongside Harden as well, right? So that's what he's doing in those minutes. Then there's the minutes where he plays alongside both of them.
Yeah.
And that number has to go down. So it's just so even in 36 minutes, like, and acknowledging a good matchup. So, like, I think if you say 0.74 is his average when he's playing with one of those 2 on the floor, then you say, well, he would average more than that because of this matchup. But then you also have to account for the minutes where he's playing alongside both. Let's just say he comes out to, 0.75 DraftKings points per minute and plays 36 minutes. Like, are you really getting there at 6,400 on this slate?
I mean, if he's unowned, not a lot, but I like the flyer. The way that you talk about that, though, makes me feel like I should not be getting him at all.
Like, I think if I'm going to one of the non-Harden Embiid pieces, I actually probably get to Harris first, just because he has more held his own. Like, he's 0.93 DraftKings points per minute with Embiid this year. I don't really want to get to him either. I just would feel a little bit better about getting there, I think, than getting to Maxey.
This is going to be really fun to watch.
Who did I play?
Who did you play?
I just said ship. It says ship played him. I didn't see who they're talking about.
I don't. PGA Showdown questions maybe that are going on right now. I have no idea.
No, I didn't play. I thought about it and I was like, I'm not waking up at 6:50 or 6 o'clock for this.
There are only 4 guys we could play from Philly, correct? Harden, Harris, Maxey, Embiid. There's not a single other option.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. What do you do with Embiid? 11-6 today, 12% ownership. That's scary.
Yeah, that's another tough one because even though I expect Embiid to be the 1 here and Harden to be the 2, Harden is still likely to be a bigger presence than like Seth Curry was. So, and you still have Embiid basically priced for what he's done recently. He did get a little bit of a discount. Like you're not talking about 12-3, 12-4, but he's still really expensive. If you get the Embiid that we've gotten from the start of the season, like if you look at his, total numbers this year, he's at 1.65 DraftKings points per minute. That would be okay. And obviously if you get the 1.8 DraftKings points per minute, that's really good. But, what if he's just back to being like a 36 or 35% usage guy instead of 44?
Yeah, I have him in at 37.5 for today.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
About right. Yeah, I mean, like
I think he looks like a good play.
Obviously, we don't know.
The other issue is we don't have a lot of value right now.
No, I think, and that's center only too.
Right.
Look, it's 12%. It's not that much. It's Joel Embiid. You're not like freaking out when you see him in a lineup. You're happy to have him. He can nuke Minnesota. He hates Towns. And Embiid is like one of the few guys where a narrative like that absolutely exists to me, where he's like petty enough to be like, oh, I got to get up for this one. Got to call Towns a pussy again. Anything else for Philly?
No.
Back to Minnesota. We had them yesterday. I was pretty high on Anthony Edwards. He was just straight doo-doo. So that went well. Russell, Edwards, Beverly, Vanderbilt, all 10% owned on DK. Vanderbilt, 18% owned on FanDuel at 4,500. I'd like to get to any one of those first 5 or 6 guys from Minnesota again, but they are not the same sort of priorities I thought they were yesterday. But I'm always happy to get a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the price tag on Russell at 7,300. Edwards, I think, still looks good at 7,400 with guard forward eligibility. I have no issue going back to him. He had a bad shooting game yesterday. Who really cares? The bigger concern to me is that he, once again, only played like 32 minutes. Yeah. If that continues, that's an issue. But for now, I'm willing to just say that it's kind of a random thing. Like he was playing poorly, or not even necessarily playing poorly, wasn't shooting well. If he's scoring, I think he gets more minutes. So I still like the price tag on him. I think Towns and Beverly's price tags both look fine as well. But like you said, they don't look quite as appealing today as I thought they did yesterday.
2/3. I don't get the sense that Harden's going to kill the pace of the Sixers. You might just be 3/3 at this point because Philly is the 27th ranked team in pace right now. Harden can't make them too much slower than that.
Yeah.
You can't kill the pace when it's already dead. But yeah, they are not exactly going to get out and running in transition. If it is, it's Maxey season with the ball in his hands. Who is your favorite Minnesota Timberwolf today?
Russell.
Yeah, Edwards again for me, but same discussion points we had yesterday. It's those two before I get to somebody else. And 10-2 Towns against Embiid is going to be a real tough sell. I got nothing else for Minnesota. I really want to watch this game though tonight. I'm pumped for it.
Meeting up with Lofty at the bar?
I actually could. I'll be even closer to him tonight than I am at this particular moment, but no. If I didn't have a 6 a.m. flight tomorrow, I might actually do that. Yeah. Not going to be fun.
Yeah, when he started to say that he started to say he was going to the bar, when he started to say he was going, I was thinking he was going to say to the game, and I was going to say I might get on a train and do that, but I'm not getting on a train just to go to the bar.
I would go to the game for sure if somebody had tickets. Pelicans 7.5-point dogs in Phoenix, 224.5 total. This is the essentially full strength Pelicans now. Devontae Graham coming off the bench. No Zion, no Larry Nance, as we're well aware. Jackson Hayes, 14% owned on FanDuel, 13% on DraftKings. That's basically it in terms of interest from the public And I agree with it. This is a terrible spot for the Pelicans. I don't really love the price tags or anything like that. If you get to McCollum or Brandon Ingram, you don't feel bad about it, or Joe Val on FanDuel at 7,400. There's not a priority in this game for me.
I mean, yeah, the matchup sucks. I think I might be a little bit higher on them than you are. Like
Okay.
Jackson Hayes played 26 minutes last game as a starter, picked up 5 fouls, probably would have played more. Didn't come in down the stretch, which was annoying, but I don't mind going back to him at 4,800 with power forward eligibility. McCollum's been an absolute monster. Obviously, this is a very difficult matchup. But in tournaments, I don't mind taking a shot on him or Joval, really. But I think Hayes is the guy I probably get to the most here.
Do you have McCollum's usage rate with New Orleans in front of you?
No.
I got him in at 29 change, so I just want to see if it's
off the top of my head, I think it's like 29 or 30.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just like relatively indifferent to these guys.
30.9.
Okay.
23.5% assist percentage.
Yeah, I got him in at 29 and change, 23 and change for assists. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it. Not against Phoenix.
Yeah, like I'm not. I don't know. McCollum is like Kuzma-esque to me on DraftKings. I'm not planning on building around him, but he's also 5% owned and can just once again go drop 50 at low ownership for like the, I don't know, 5th time in a row, it feels like. So I don't know. I've been over on McCollum a lot since he came to the Pels. I think there's a decent chance I end up there again tonight.
It's that whole area that's just loaded. You know, you got Devin Booker again at 9,200, Shea at 9K, Kuzma at 89, Butler at 89, Van Vliet at 88, Halliburton at 8,800 doesn't look great. Donovan Mitchell at 8,700. You get CJ at 86, Russ at 85.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I will say
so many guys in that range.
Right. Like I think I get to McCollum over Halliburton. I think I get to him over Butler. I think I get to him over SGA. I think
Butler's close.
I mean, I think he's close, but I like McCollum a little bit more. Sure as hell don't get to him over Booker.
No.
Mitchell, I think, is pretty comparable. I'd probably lean McCollum.
Weird. So like I have Mitchell by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's close.
Yeah. And that's not even to say that like I think Donovan Mitchell's a really good play, but like I have him pretty firmly ahead of McCollum. Yeah. I don't know. It's a tricky spot. Andrew Kang with the super chat said, "Sup fam, hope you all hit big last night." Didn't. Broke even on DFS. That feels familiar.
Yeah,
hit two nice in-game parlays though. Would have been 3, but Edwards decided he didn't want to score 15 points. Am I crazy to have 80% Pirtle? Yes.
In the sense that it's like a lot when you factor in opportunity cost and like the number of options at the position. I like Pirtle. I think he's a good play. It's kind of similar to what I was saying at the top of the show, where like typically I don't end up taking a stand like that on, you know, some mid-range guy, but like I did last night on Kevin Love. I think I had like 60%. I had 30% Mobley. Like I do it once in a while. It is extremely risky to do something like that. Like you go from, you know, your bad nights typically being like 40-50% losses to, you know, 80-85% if things go poorly.
Look, you can get the same sort of utility out of having 30% Jakob Poeltl because nobody else has him. Like when he's, what is he right now? 5% owned, something like that, in and around. Just guessing. I guess I could just fucking type it in and look at it. 8% owned. Yeah. So like, if you want to 4x the field and get to 32, that's a ton of Jakob Poeltl, and you can still then also get some other centers. That's 80% is just too much.
Yeah, it's kind of the issue is like the whatever percentage of the time he actually is the best center play. Like, yeah, you look great. But one, that's a really low number.
Yeah.
And two, there's still a decent chance that like someone else tanks all of those lineups. You know, like some other guy that you have a lot of, you know, Poeltl does great, and then you have, I don't know, whoever else you play with him just does poorly. And like the downside to an approach like that is pretty low. So, I mean, it really, most times it kind of just comes down to your general strategy. Like there are players that I think do well in tournaments that go way more concentrated than I prefer to. If you are cool with having bigger swings, then, you know, obviously everybody has big swings in DFS. Approaches like that have even bigger ones. It kind of just comes down to your overall strategy. If your strategy is not to typically be that concentrated, I don't think Poeltl is the kind of guy that I would be like getting away from that strategy for.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
there's nothing about his spot today or scenario or anything that makes me think, oh, he's a decent, it's a good opportunity to go crazy on him.
right. Like yesterday, the reason that I was fine just being way, way, way over the field on Love was I thought that the industry was just straight up projecting him wrong.
Right.
And I was like, okay, cool. Like that, but that doesn't happen very often. Like nobody's projecting Jakob Poeltl for 24 minutes today, and like you think he's going to play 30. Everyone's got him at 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
there's not a great reason to be like just jamming him in over everything.
Let's go to the Phoenix side, where obviously Devin Booker's pulling a ton of ownership. We just saw this yesterday. Also pulling a ton of ownership, the guy that did start yesterday, that is not Aaron Holiday. Certainly wasn't Elfrid Payton, who did not see the floor. It was Cam Johnson, 30% owned on FanDuel, 20 on DK. I'm assuming we get the same sort of lineup here. I want to play Booker. I want to play Cam Johnson if he's playing 30 minutes. I like Mikal Bridges quite a bit at 5,600 on FanDuel. Ayton seems fine, but this is the Booker show once again.
Yep. Yeah, like don't expect 6 steals again, but played 38 minutes last night. I expect that to be the case. Going back to last season and really this season, you're talking about a 3 to 4% usage bump without Chris Paul on the floor. You're talking about like an 8% assist bump without Chris Paul on the floor. If you then want to go, even further and say, well, there's also, for a lot of these minutes, there's no Holiday, there's no Peyton, there's no Payne, there's no point guard at all. So you can expect the assist numbers to be even higher. But yeah, Booker just looks absolutely phenomenal.
Yep.
I actually want to see how many potential assists he had yesterday.
It's okay, man. It's not like he was good, though. He outlier steals day is the only reason you should have had him anyway.
Well, I was kind of laughing because I think at like halftime, he had like 3 assists and like 4 steals. And I was just kind of laughing. Like I had him, so I didn't care that he was doing well, but I was kind of laughing like, wow. Just sort of like, oh, of course, like the really popular guy is actually not getting there in the way that we all thought he would. But then
I wonder who would have been tweeting about that.
That also. That's not the number I wanted. Oh. What?
I kicked something over.
Yeah.
Nothing problematic, but annoying nonetheless.
He had the hell. All right, according to NBA.com, nobody on the Suns had any potential assists yesterday, so that's helpful.
Maybe they were all just real assists. They didn't have the potential got realized.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of actual assists, Booker had 12, Aaron Holiday and Cam Johnson were next with 5. But yeah, they don't have their tracking numbers up, so I can't see that.
I assume you have no problem playing heavily owned Cam Johnson today if he's starting again?
As long as he's starting.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll start Elfrid Payton or something stupid today. I don't have much else to say about Phoenix. Like this, we got him yesterday. Keep your eyes peeled for news. We're not going to know anything about Phoenix if they've got any weird shit going on until later this afternoon. But
yeah, I mean, I like Ayton again at 6,800 too. Same, stuff I talked about yesterday. Usage rate goes down a little bit without Chris Paul, but still rebounds, still should play 30 minutes, still is pretty cheap.
Aaron Holiday, by the way, 5K today.
Somebody said steals def saved him. He went like 25 and 10. He was scoring 50 plus fantasy points regardless.
Yeah. Steals made him essential.
Right.
Instead of just really good.
Right.
And on FanDuel, where those steals are worth 3, it's even more brutal.
Yeah, and where you don't get the double bonus. But
yeah. Nothing else for Phoenix. So let's go to Dallas. We're going to cruise through these next 2 games, I would imagine. Dallas Mavericks are 6-point dogs in Utah, 216.5 total. Probably getting Reggie Bullock back today. He is questionable. We'll see. Frank Ntilikina off the injury report. Your boy Marquise Chris is doubtful. Trey Burke is questionable. I don't know how much it matters. Luka Doncic is 15 to 20% owned, depending on the site. I don't think anybody's going to be all that surprised to know that people are rostering Luka Doncic today. I think you can have a little bit of Jalen Brunson. You can have a little bit of Dorian Finney-Smith. But if Bullock is back, I think it's just those 3 guys and nothing else.
Yeah, I don't really see a whole lot here. Like, not particularly interested in the matchup. Luka clearly fine, but you kind of run into the same issue as with Embiid, where not only is it that he's expensive, but right now you just don't have a lot of really good value. Even the value plays that we have liked are typically in that like 4 to 5K range, as opposed to being 3K guys or $3,500 guys that make it easy to get up to almost $12,000. So. And as you were mentioning before too, just a lot of really good guard options in that 8 to 9K range. So the opportunity cost is pretty high here as well. Certainly not going to talk anyone off of Luka. I think it's pretty difficult to get there. Not really enamored with Brunson or Dinwiddie or anything.
No, I just don't. I just don't see it. Wish I had more to talk about for Dallas. Just my boy Luka, who sucked in the All-Star game once again, and it's going to cause me to get maimed. All right, Andrew Kang with another super chat. So let's check it out. Need your thoughts. Wizards are tiny, and Pirtle tends to kill smaller teams. Also, if he's low owned, isn't it beneficial to have a lot of him if you're confident he kills? Only two I have is Embiid and him. So two things. One, like honestly, if Thomas Bryant ends up out, it's probably worse for Jakob Pirtle because then Daniel Gafford's out there and he's slightly better. But that's not even really the point. You shouldn't be confident in anybody to kill. That's sort of where you get into troublesome areas. This is all sort of just another projection game. No matter what you feel is going to happen, might not be the reason you should be playing 60% Jakob Pirtle.
Right. It's like, I think Pirtle has a good game as well. The issue is you can't be confident, like in any true sense, that Pirtle beats the entire field of Wood, Valanciunas, Carter, Ayton, and those are just the 3 or 4 guys priced right around him in his price range. Not to mention other guys like Bam or Gobert or whoever. Like, you might like him more than all of those guys, but when you're talking about him versus the field, like, that's still he's a dog versus the field. No matter what you think of him, really. And going back to the point I said before, like, everyone's projections are factoring in that he's facing the Wizards. So it's not like you can't look at it and say, oh, well, everyone else thinks he's playing the Knicks, but I know he's playing the Wizards. And so that's why there's like an edge here in playing Jakob Pirtle. Like, everybody's projections are factoring in this matchup. So he looks good. If you think that he's a good spot to get some leverage on the field in lineups, that's fine. But I have a hard time typically on guys where there's no real reason to think that the field is projecting him poorly and that I am going to be right. It's just hard on someone that has a lot of options around him to just like be jamming them in, I think.
Yeah. And like, if Thomas Bryant gets ruled out, Jakob Pirtle's not even the best center play in his own game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Daniel Gafford becomes like a guy that's going to get a lot of center ownership right away that you're sort of blocking out. It's an options thing. Look, again, there's no reason. It's not necessarily bad to take massive stands. One just feels a little bit more arbitrary. Donovan Mitchell's 13. You got more?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay. Donovan Mitchell's 13% owned on DK. Bojan Bogdanovic is 11. No one else is in above double digits on either site. I don't think anything looks good here. Donovan Mitchell would be my only guy that I've wanted to get to. I don't really want anything from Utah.
Yeah, nothing really for me either. Gobert played 28 minutes last game. He's 8,400. If he gets back to 32 or 33, he's certainly got a ceiling on him. But, again, just nothing that really separates him from all of those other mid-range centers. Yeah, not a ton here. Mitchell looks fine. Doesn't separate for me from the pack, in that price range either.
And then we close it out. The Battle of Los Angeles, the LA Clippers, the Los Angeles Lakers. Clips are 1-point dogs in the same building they always play in against the Lakers, 223 total. Clippers are at full strength, and they started to get pretty weird before the break. I'm anxious to see if that continues. Obviously, still no Paul George or Powell or Leonard or anything, but we saw Reggie Jackson getting a ton of minutes before we went to the All-Star break. He's pretty heavily owned on FanDuel, a little bit less so on DraftKings, where he's a bit more expensive. But Jackson, Batum, Zubac, Coffee, Kennard, all double digits in ownership or even more, with Zubac getting up over 20% ownership. Seems a little aggressive to me. How do you feel about the Clippers here going up against the Lakers team that is dog shit defensively and doesn't have the best defensive player on their team?
Scared, but it also makes sense. Yeah, they're just cheap across the board for the opportunities that they get and the matchup that they have. Zubats is another one where, yeah, I think he's probably overowned in the sense that he's not going to be in the optimal lineup 24% of the time. But the way things look right now, I mean, he opens up a lot. He does have a very high ceiling. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. Same can be said for somebody like Batum and Kennard. Neither guy makes you feel great when you plug them into a lineup, but they're just cheaper than they should be in this spot. Reggie Jackson is likely to give you 36 minutes. He's like a 30% usage guy without George and with Marcus Morris active. So all those guys look good. I'm assuming Coffee gives you something like 26 minutes somewhere in there. They all just the value pieces all I think are good plays right now. I think that they're good plays regardless of what opens up. But right now it's like the ownership's getting pushed up because we just have nothing else.
Yeah.
So that's something where if stuff does open up, I think you see the ownership come down, but these guys are still going to hold as at least pretty decent values.
Are groups really important to you for the Clippers?
To some extent, at least. Like, I think you're fine with Jackson no matter what.
Yeah.
I obviously don't want Zubats and Hartenstein together. I guess I don't want more than two probably of the like Man, Batum, Covington, Coffee group.
Sure.
Kennard.
Yeah.
So like I assume
taking
Jackson,
a lot of bites
Morris,
at the apple, but
I assume
no real
Jackson,
priorities.
Morris, Zubats are in the closing lineup, or Hartenstein, I guess. They could go small, but normally you're going to get Jackson, Morris, probably Zubats. So that's why I think it's like I don't want more than two of the other guys.
Feels like a good time to go to a non-center closing lineup against the Lakers.
You could, I guess, pretty easily just get a Jackson, Morris, Batum, Man, Covington.
Yeah, because I don't think the Clips are going to be all that worried if the Lakers start trotting out Dwight Howard or something in closing minutes. So,
right.
I
still don't know that I would want three of those guys anyway, though.
Same. That would look a little bit dicier. I think you got to cast a pretty wide net on the Clippers today.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about it on the Lakers. At least from a FanDuel perspective, is Russell Westbrook at 7K the best play on the slate?
I'm not sure that Westbrook in 2022 is ever the best play at any price, but that is a really good price tag.
Yeah, he's 1.2-ish fantasy points per minute in games without AD. He's 33% owned, and I think he should be. I think he looks good on DraftKings at 8,500. I think Braun looks fine at 10.6. I think Talen Horton-Tucker might be the actual best play on DK at 4,500. Shooting guard, small forward. Best play for the Lakers, not necessarily best play on the slate. What are you going to do with the Lakers here?
I mean, they look really good in fantasy, at least LeBron and Russ both look better than normal. Like you said, 20 games this year where Westbrook and LeBron have played and Davis is not. LeBron's at 1.6 DraftKings points per minute. Westbrook's at 1.2. They just both, I think, are pretty fairly priced. This is another case where like you go back to Embiid, you go back to Luka. Obviously, those guys are good. I don't really feel the need to pay like $1,000 or $1,200 to get to them over LeBron on a slate with pretty questionable value. So that's another thing that'll make it difficult for me. Then the rest of these guys, I think it's sort of just taking shots at them because it's hard to feel confident with, Monk versus Melo versus Horton-Tucker. But I think there's a good chance at least one of those guys does very well for their price tag.
I gave Horton-Tucker 30 minutes, 29 to Monk, 27 to Melo. Melo's still working his way back. I don't know how good I feel about it. But if Horton-Tucker's getting 30 minutes, 4,500 shooting guard, small forward stands out to me. Is there anything else here? Like, can we go to a Stanley Johnson? Can Dwight play enough here that you care?
I'm curious to see what the starting lineup is. Howard did play 12 minutes in the second half of their last game.
Lucky for you, you'll get that information when every other game is already locked. So
yeah. So I mean, the second half to start the last game, the starting lineup to start the second half in the last game was Westbrook, Monk, Ariza, James, and Johnson. So for now, I'll assume that's what they do and that they go to Dwight Howard as the backup for, I don't know, call it 16 minutes or something. He could get there at 3K. The issue is that those 16 minutes, while they could be like 20, it also could be like 10.
Shit, it could be 0.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you shouldn't have any confidence, but there is at least, a chance that Howard does well at 3K. I think I would rather roll the dice on a 3K Howard than like a $3,600 Johnson or a $3,200 Ariza, just because like Stanley Johnson and Ariza aren't very good point per minute guys. So like they're the ones that are more likely to give you, 22 DraftKings points at 3,600, where it's like, oh, cool, I feel good because they got the flame emoji on DraftKings, but realistically, I just wasted a lineup spot on 22 points. Howard is more likely to give you like just, snowflake the entire game, but he's also the one that's more likely to just like do something that wins you a tournament.
I really wish we could control like what dictated flame emojis and snowflake emojis so that I could track my lineups visually rather than like trying to figure out if it was actually any good, but neither here nor there. 9 games up, 9 games down. GPP videos, injury videos, deeper dive for you.
Yep.
It's a fun one, man. It's going to be an interesting slate. There's not like a ton that we're really waiting on. A couple of those back-to-back teams will be interesting, but it's nice to come back out of the break and sort of have everything lined up for us.
Yeah, I thought that yesterday
until
I lost 10 grand.
Well, no reason you can't get it back today. Guys, thank you for being here. Please hit that like button on your way out the door. Thank you to No House Advantage for being the presenting sponsor of this video. Good luck to everybody tonight. Enjoy your weekend. That's it for me. I'm done. I'll see you Sunday morning. I've got Laffy for the strategy show. I assume we'll be talking a tattoo bet, so that should be a real blast for me. Later, everybody.